It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar.
All right, welcome back in. Craig Smoak, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Off the Radar, taking a look at some stories that are outside our normal purview, normal things that we talk about. And I was surprised we didn't get to this yesterday, and I don't know that we would have gotten to it today if not for mentioning it here, which is kind of the point in some ways of the segment. Did y'all read that Mavs article?
Oh, yeah. I tried to get the author, I couldn't get, or the writer, I couldn't get him.
Yeah, The Athletic with a pretty explosive article yesterday, and I know that Tim Cato was making the radio rounds. He and Sam Amick paired up to write the lengthy article on the Mavericks behind-the-scenes happenings, and Luka Doncic is getting ready to sign a Supermax extension. We know that that is going to happen, but the gist of the article is that there is a guy who is behind the scenes by the name of Haralabos Voulgaris. He is the Mavs Director of Quantitative Research and Development, and apparently he has become the most influential voice in the front office since his hiring in 2018. This is a guy that was a former big-money gambler, like big-money sports gambler, and apparently, you know, like one of the first quotes in the article is Mark Cuban's the most powerful guy in the organization. The second most powerful is whoever he's listening to. And this guy is apparently somebody that Mark Cuban is listening to. There's all sorts of things in this article about, you know, him setting lineups for games, him having a bad relationship with Luka Doncic, including a sideline incident where he was making a motion as though to try to tell Luka to do something. Luka did not respond well to that. Luka, you know, there's thoughts on this being bad enough, this guy's influence, that it could force Luka Doncic eventually out of Dallas because this guy is such bad news. But for whatever reason, Mark Cuban seems to like him and appreciate him. Mark Cuban responded to the article yesterday with just a 2-word answer, and he basically just said, it's bull S. And that's all he said about it. But I heard a Cato interview, Tim Cato, later on, and he doesn't sound like a guy who's just making up stuff. Like, so this is a bizarre story, that there's this just random guy behind the scenes who used to be a big money gambler, and he's having influential decision-making, or he's making influential decisions in some cases. So it's a very interesting article if you haven't read it. It's pretty in-depth, so I can't really paraphrase it too well. But basically, there's a dude behind the scenes that a lot of Mavs fans now know about and are worried about, and it could have an effect on Luka Doncic and whether or not he's the next Dirk, or he's a guy that's gone after his next contract in Dallas.
Yeah, he's going to sign the Supermax when it comes around because he'd be foolish not to. But the bottom line is this sounds a lot to me like Jack Easterby in Houston, in that maybe this guy knows a little bit more about basketball than Jack Easterby knows about football, but it's having the same effect. And the Texans' first response about Jack Easterby was, this is not a problem, but if it wasn't, then why are people talking about it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so... most of the time, like, while these things can be maybe a little overblown by a column or an article like this, if they weren't an issue, nobody would say anything about it.
Okay, here's the deal. What's the guy, Tim Cato?
Yeah. It was Tim Cato and Sam Amick.
Yeah, he didn't just wake up one day and go, I want to piss off Mark Cuban.
He covers the Mavericks as well as anybody.
Exactly. It's not like he want to do, you know, it's this, and I don't think this is just, I think somebody saw a problem, and they went to him with it. He did the story. It's explosive. And then for Mark Cuban to say it's BS, maybe he's just trying to protect his own you-know-what.
Yeah, it does mention the article that the Mavs don't plan on replacing Rick Carlisle, and this guy's contract, Haralabos Voulgaris, apparently runs out this summer. So with this article coming out, it'll be interesting to see if they retain him, and then that would really make you go, okay, why is this dude so important? Why is he being allowed to make such decisions and not Rick Carlisle or Mark Cuban or whoever else? And why is Luka annoyed? Because that's all you really need to be worried about is Luka Doncic's happiness.
Well, if his contract's not renewed, does that
that's the thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Or is that just timing?
But if it's true that Luka has a problem with him and his contract is up, again, these guys, you know, that's why I don't understand with the Texans and Jack Easterby.
Sounds like an analytical guy,
like,
right?
But it's kind of like the Texans and Jack Easterby. Look, when Deshaun Watson had a problem, and this is the guy's the chaplain, like, go get another chaplain.
Yeah, his official title when he came on in 2018 was analytics. It was an advisory role in the analytics department. But like I said, they were saying that he was helping set lineups in certain games and things like that.
This isn't it's not the 93 Bulls.
Why would Rick Carlisle
let him go.
allow that to happen?
Well, that's what's so confusing about this whole thing is, like, Is that true? Was he actually like was this in the preseason that he was doing that, or was this something that was like actually commonplace? And if so, yeah, why would Rick Carlisle allow that? Why does this guy seemingly have influence to begin with?
Wouldn't you think Carlisle would just say, "Screw you, I'm leaving" on that? I know he's making. Good money.
That's what's so bizarre about it is like, does he trust this guy too? I guess that's the thing is nobody can quite figure out. All of a sudden, he's a well-known name. Not easy to say, but that is something that ruffled quite a few feathers, as you can imagine, in the Dallas-Fort Worth market yesterday, in talking about the future of Luka Doncic and just where this Mavs franchise is headed. So it's actually not that lengthy of an article. If you have an Athletic subscription, you can check it out. It's scratch your head stuff, though, for sure, and will be interesting to track moving forward. The NBA playoffs roll along. I'll get to the game tonight, but apparently the league is discussing a rule change, and this could be known as the James Harden rule, so that players cannot use unnatural motions on jump shots in order to draw fouls. The competition committee is discussing a rule that would prevent players from using unnatural motions on jump shots to drop fouls. Adrian Wojnarowski said the league is looking to prevent players like James Harden, mentioned again, and Trae Young from leaning into foul calls, which they do all of the time. It would go into effect during the offseason and has to be recommended to the Board of Governors and then voted upon, and they will talk to GMs about the changes according to Wojnarowski. But yeah, basically James Harden is the poster child for this potential rule change. And I mean, do you guys notice it enough to see it as an issue? I mean, I certainly see guys definitely leaning in and drawing fouls on a regular basis, and I would be more than happy to clean up some of the free throw line, or to clean up some of the free throw shots that we see in today's game.
I think the NBA game is getting closer and closer to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey with they're getting to be soccer floppers.
Yeah, that's been the case for like well over a decade, though. That's been going on for a long time now. And, yeah, it was soccer influenced, but they just picked up on it, and, yeah, it's flopping all over the place. Not to the extent of soccer, though. Soccer's like you think a dude just stepped on a landmine after getting, scratched on the elbow. But, yeah, they're at least going to try to cut down on some of the unnecessary fouls, so that is something to keep track of in the NBA.
It just made me realize this, and this is not to be flippant. But when the player went down this weekend, how many people thought perhaps he was faking?
Oh, I'm sure some may have.
Because of the sock.
And if you weren't watching it when he fell and you just see him on the ground, you probably would just figure like, oh, he's flopping after a close call or something. Because you do see it often enough that if you weren't paying close attention, I could see how that would cross your mind. Alex Rodriguez, he might be one of the co-owners of the Minnesota Timberwolves here pretty soon. But he said they will keep the team in Minnesota. I guess there's questions about whether or not they would decide to pick up and move. Seattle's still wanting a basketball team. There's a whole keep the Wolves in Minnesota thing going on. So A-Rod, I guess, has seized some of those rumors and said that if, in fact, he does get the ownership, they will not sell the franchise, and they will keep it in Minneapolis. Although I am very curious to see Minneapolis over the next few years with all that's going on up there politically and just the climate there. It doesn't seem like it's really a thriving town at the moment. And I am wondering if, kind of like we've seen with Oakland, certain cities, the older we get, certain cities just aren't the cities that they used to be. And I don't know if that'll be the case with Minneapolis. I sure hope not. But they are going to keep the T-Wolves there no matter if A-Rod is the owner or not.
The current owner, or who's about to be the former owner, that was a sticking point for him on a couple of times when they had people who wanted to buy the team and he backed away because they couldn't trust them not moving the team.
I think there's a big push for – there's going to be an NBA team again in Seattle eventually.
Yes. And that's the basic one they're pointing at.
Yeah, and so I think that if you're really passionate about making sure the team that you used to own stays where it is, then that needs to be a stipulation because there will be a group that wants to move a team to Seattle because plenty of people want to bring back the Sonics and
Yep. So apparently, A-Rod kind of had to do this because in the actual language, there's nothing preventing them from moving the team to Seattle. Yeah. So I think it's kind of a preliminary move on his part, like, hey, no, don't worry about it. We're going to stay here. But there's at least some chatter about it. So that may be another thing to keep an eye on with the future.
Art Modell used to say, exactly. So you can't.
Xavien Howard has not been attending, or he was not at mandatory minicamp today, and they don't expect him to be down there in Miami. According to ESPN, he signed a 5-year contract back in 2019. Why do you think he's not at camp?
He wants a new contract.
He wants a renegotiation of the deal he signed less than 2 years ago. Brian Flores, head coach, who is a minority candidate, despite what Clarence Hill tried to say one time in attempting to get some Twitter clout. Brian Flores said it's pretty clear this is a contract situation, which we talked about internally. X is a little bit of a unique situation. He was extended, and now we're talking about a potential renegotiation after 1 year. Those turn into longer conversations. We understand that. We obviously had a lot of talks and combos about that, and blah, blah, blah. We'll continue to have those. He just turned 28, or will turn 28, upcoming in the month of August, or month of July, I do believe. So, yeah, he was the highest paid corner in the league for like 2 weeks or something crazy like that, and then he wasn't, and I guess now he wants to be again.
He's not even the highest paid cornerback on his team anymore.
No, he's not.
With Byron Jones?
With Byron Jones. Yeah. So, also, I'll start the countdown now. Like, I say that if he misses mini camp and then maybe the first year at training camp, how long before somebody writes an article with possible trade destinations for Xavien Howard, #1 Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, you just started it. Well, I'll ask David Hellman about that coming up.
It's not going to happen.
No.
Not going to happen. But that's going to be an article that gets written. And then here's what's going to happen. Because the Cowboys' name is invoked, Xavien Howard, who would have gotten what he wanted anyway, will get what he wants about 3 weeks earlier.
Yeah, and he wants to come home. We'll hear that 20 million times. He grew up in Texas and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, basically. But now there's a bunch of guys who are making more money than him. Marlon Humphrey of the Ravens, Tre'Davious White of the Bills,
Ramsey.
Darius Slay of the Eagles, Jalen Ramsey of the Rams, and Byron Jones, as you mentioned. So he's not only not the highest paid corner and was only that for like less than a year, but he's like the 6th highest paid cornerback now at this point. So something to keep track of there with good old Xavien Howard, who's had a great career. I mean, as far as Baylor guys in the NFL go, he's probably been the best one since who?
Name someone Baylor football
Singletary?
Santana Dotson was a good player for a while. So
that's been better in a career for sustained it. Because a lot of them had 2 or 3 year runs, and that's about it. Maybe still in the league, but not long.
I would say if you went back, it would be Howard, Dotson, Singletary. Like in that.
Man, that's a
like
big
if you went
gap.
backwards, yeah.
That's a huge gap.
But think about the gap of 16 years where they weren't putting players in the NFL.
No, I know. That's a big gap, too. That says,
Yep. So
how many of them were expected to be at least sustained? We just talked about Kendall Wrights in CFL. Corey Coleman still looking for an opportunity. Wow.
Yep. So Xavien Howard, look for some contract news over the next few weeks. Either he'll be staying put in Miami and playing on the deal he's under. He'll get renegotiated and play in Miami. But Flores did make another comment, too, about, like, we just did this a year ago. So I don't think that they're, like, totally open to just, blank checks for Xavien Howard when they are already spending, obviously, huge money at corner when they got 2 of, like, the top 6 highest paid guys in the league. Tonight, NBA, just one game. Bucks are at the Brooklyn Nets. That series is tied at 2, and we do know that the Nets are going to be without James Harden, and the Nets are also going to be without the third wheel. Kevin Durant's the only one available. James Harden and Kyrie Irving. Thanks. They're going to be out for tonight, so that series is tied at 2 apiece. It's in Brooklyn, starting at 7:30 on TNT, and the NHL keeps rolling along. They'll have a game tonight. Islanders up 1-0 in that series. Game 2 at Tampa Bay. That's tonight at 7. So those are just a few of the stories that are a bit off the radar.
All right. Thank you.